So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in an ayah of the Quran, an ayah, my brothers and sisters, if we were to ponder over it, then we would realize the reality of our responsibility, the reality of that which we will be questioned about. Allah Jalla wa Ala has stated, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, O you who believe, save yourselves and your families from the fire. Allah begins by mentioning that you must save yourselves. Save yourselves with tawheed and ibadah, keeping away from that which Allah has forbidden, racing towards that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded you with. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described this hellfire, that He has mentioned, save yourselves, then your families. And then from the fire which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described, the nar, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ, whose fuel is men and stone. عَلَيْهَا مَلَائِكَةٌ غِلَاظٌ شِدَادٌ, upon this hellfire, there are angels severe, stern, strong and severe. These angels whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described, لَا يَعْصُونَ اللَّهَ مَا أَمَرَهُمْ, that they do not disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded them with. وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ, and that they do that which they have been commanded with. This affair, my brothers and sisters, of yourselves and your families, save them from a fire which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described for us, a fire upon which are angels that do not disobey, that they overpower, and they are stern, and they are severe. And we find in our times, we find from some of our youth and some of our youngsters that they say that we recognize these verses, we've memorized these verses, we know the translations and the meanings of these verses, but I just need a few years. I need a few years of fun. I want to leave the istiqamah or the siratul mustaqim that I'm upon, or this upright path that I'm upon. I wish to leave it for a while. I wish to go and have some fun. I wish to go and play around. And then later on in life, I'll come back. This is what they say. And some of this I've heard with my own ears from some of our youth. And even some of our elder ones also, some who are slightly older than that. Then we say to them, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For indeed the hearts are between the two fingers of Ar-Rahman. And He turns them whichever direction that He chooses. You do not know, my brothers and sisters, especially the youngsters, you don't know, you youth, teenagers. You don't know what your life has in store for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. You do not know. You cannot guarantee your return. Also, as some of Ahlul Ilm have stated, that you find that many people leave the sins that they're upon because they never knew istiqamah, they never knew uprightness, they never knew their religion, they never knew what was true ibadah, they never knew their Lord truly. So they left the sins and transgressions that they were upon. So maybe they were drug dealers, maybe they were people who used to steal, maybe there were people who knew nothing about ibadah, never had knowledge, they were just Muslim by name. They never knew the arkan of Islam. They never knew that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had obligated upon them. Or you had those individuals who came from clear and utter shirk and kufr. Maybe they were unbelievers, kuffar, worshipping idols, worshipping Isa ibn Maryam, worshipping Jesus the son of Mary. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided them towards Islam and guided them up to istiqamah and to the siratul mustaqim. That Allah guided them to the straight path. And this is a reality that we find much of our masjid is filled with these types of individuals. The individuals who are upon misguidance, individuals who are upon the pit of the hellfire, about to be cast therein. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them from that. So this is commonplace. Then how many people do you find, my brothers and sisters, who are upon steadfastness, upon istiqamah, practicing their religion, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 5 times a day, attending the circles of knowledge, maybe even performed an umrah or a hajj, and then they left the straight path because they wanted to have this fun, wanted to enjoy the dunya, wanted to transgress the bounds, commit sins, and then they said, we'll come back. How many of them ever return back? How many of them ever return back? You will find hardly any, my brothers and sisters, hardly any return back. But those the other way, those who were completely upon misguidance, upon transgression, those who are wrapped up in kufr and shirk, then many of those will come because they realize the sins that they were upon and the beauty that Islam offers them. Why would anyone leave the beauty of Islam and the goodness of Islam and the serenity of the soul and the nearness to Allah? Why would anyone wish to leave that and go astray, choosing to go astray, and then say, one day I'll come back? Allah knows best whether those individuals will come back. And from our experience, and from that which Ahlul Ilm have stated, that very few, once they leave the path, ever return back to the path, because they have chosen their path of misguidance. وَيَتَّبِي غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ نُوَلِّهِ مَا تَوَلَّى وَنُصْلِهِ جَهَنَّمْ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. That they choose other than the path of the believers, then Allah leaves them in the path that they have chosen, because they chose it for themselves. And Allah will roast them or burn them in the hellfire. And what an evil destination. So be aware, my brothers and sisters, of this false delusion or illusion, this beguilement of shaitan, that he makes you believe and he convinces you into thinking that there's a path that you can go astray upon, and then you will somehow at some stage for assurity come back. There are no assurities in that regard. For indeed, if you choose misguidance, then who will guide you back save Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?